In 2008, The Dark Knight, directed by the great Christopher Nolan, came out and has been the comic book standard for nearly 20 years now. It showed the world that you can take this genre seriously, ground it to our world, and tell a true crime epic. Heath Ledger gave an iconic performance that won him an Oscar, and to this day, many feel that the film itself should have at the very least been nominated for Best Picture. Then, after many years of Warner Brothers trying to copy the MCU, comes a fresh new take on the timeless Caped Crusader, The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. Upon its announcement, this film was initially met with lots of confusion and controversy. Controversy because of the casting of Robert Pattinson, the Twilight Boy, and confusion because at that point the DC cinematic universe was scattered all over the place and no one knew what the heck was going on. But once it came out in 2022, the world was shaken. People immediately were calling this the best Batman film since The Dark Knight, and just in general, one of the best comic book films to have ever been made. Now, the question isn't who is the better Batman, who would win in a fight, because I think we all know truly what the answer is. But the question is who has the better Batman film. Both are incredible films. The Nolan trilogy is so ingrained into my DNA. It is such a big part of why I love cinema and why I love superheroes. But as a lifelong Batman fan, I think there is a compelling argument to be made that perhaps The Batman is the better film. The objective truth. It had been many years since I had seen the Nolan trilogy, and I just recently rewatched it, and after doing so, the stark contrast was so evident. Both films are doing very different things. There are many key differences to both films. The color grading and cinematography is very different. Nolan's is very contrasty, filmed in lots of natural light, which is essential to his style, whereas Matt Reeves is very intentional with the color palette, and he and cinematographer Greg Fraser's choice to shoot everything with a shallow depth of field to add to the immersion. The genre itself is very different, which affects the tone and pacing of the film. The Dark Knight is an action-packed crime thriller. Though it has to do with the mob, it feels more like a heist and espionage action film than a mafia crime drama. This makes the film very fast-paced and very plot-driven. In Reeves, the tone is much more of a mystery thriller with a very character-driven narrative structure, while also telling a complex story. The pacing and overall tone is much more serious, contemplative, with lots of moments without dialogue, letting scenes breathe, letting the actors communicate to the audience through their expressions. Visual storytelling. Now, none of these things I've mentioned make the film better or worse, but I do think each film holds a very distinct advantage over the other. The Dark Knight has the Joker. This interpretation of the character paired with the acting of Heath Ledger is just unmatched. The writing of this entire film is surrounding the Joker and is so expertly executed. There are so many moving parts in The Dark Knight. The tension Harvey Dent has with Gordon, the love triangle, the mob growing desperate, the list goes on. Every scene in that film is in service to Joker's philosophies and is challenging Batman's worldview. The Riddler is a great villain in The Batman, but he doesn't come close to what David Goyer, Jonathan, and Christopher Nolan cooked up with Heath Ledger. The Batman is about the Batman. No film has ever been truly that personal. Reeves' take is a character study of the Batman. We watch him go on a very meaningful and essential journey. He is a punisher of crime the entire film. His heart is in the right place. He wants to save Gotham, but he is only focusing on his hatred and his pain. By the end of the film, he establishes deeper human connections and truly becomes a hero and a symbol of hope, not just fear and vengeance incarnate. Now, all that being said, what is the best Batman film in my opinion? Well, I think that has to go to Mask of the Phantasm. That is a great film though, but I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, I do think it comes down to how you view Batman personally. And with a combination of my love for cinema and my love for Batman, for me that has to be Matt Reeves' The Batman. I think frankly Reeves just understands Batman a whole lot more than Nolan. I already knew this subconsciously. The first time I saw The Batman, when I came out of the theater, I just knew that was my Batman, so to speak. After rewatching the Nolan trilogy, I could actually articulate specifically why now. And I do think there is very specific choices made in The Dark Knight that just don't work for me. Both filmmakers approach realism in different ways. Nolan tries to ground Batman in realism by making Gotham essentially New York or Chicago. Lots of explanation to how Batman has his gadgets. Just overall, he makes him more vulnerable. His intellect and his armor. But I think what really stands out to me the most is how I feel like Batman as a whole isn't as intelligent as he should be in Nolan's. He isn't as self-sufficient as he should be. He relies a lot on Lucius Fox. I think Nolan shows us that he is a great tactician, an intimidating figure, but never really shows us that he's the world's greatest detective. And just a small little nitpick is the fight choreography. I mean, it just is not good in the Nolan trilogy. The ninja scenes are kind of good in the Batman Begins, but for sure the whole trilogy just good action set pieces for sure. I mean, it's Nolan we're talking about, but the hand-to-hand combat is just so safe and uninspired. It almost reminds me of Arrow, how everyone Batman fights just absolutely sucks, and it's never a compelling fight. Now, there's three things I identified, big and small, in The Dark Knight that in the context of the film it works and it's okay, but I feel like when you really think about it, it's not. So the first thing is the Coleman Reese thing. The Coleman Reese having leverage over Bruce and Batman forgetting to burn archives, forgetting to get rid of evidence. That is just so ridiculous. I completely forgot about that detail. When that scene happened with Lucius Fox, it's funny, it's badass, it's cool. But when I really thought about it, I'm like, that just makes Batman seem incompetent. The next two things I'm going to say will be controversial, and I would love to know people's opinions. Alfred essentially helping Batman understand the psyche of the Joker. Again, in the context, it works. When he explains to him how some men want to watch the world burn, that whole scene is haunting and very moving, very impactful. But the more I think about it, I'm like, didn't Bruce spend like a whole decade in the criminal underworld? Like, who knows what he's seen, who knows what he's done, and in that whole time he did not encounter someone like this, similar to this. Like, I didn't like that one bit. Like, in Matt Reeves' take, he doesn't understand Riddler's motives, but he understands the serial killer mindset. Like, he understands at least a degree of this dark mind. And here Bruce just seems completely like, I don't know what to do, how do I stop this? Or he simplifies him. He's just a criminal. I need to find what he's after. And again, I just don't like that. I feel like Batman is smarter than that. Especially someone like Batman having so much darkness and demons within him. He should, on some level, be able to relate or figure out what someone like the Joker, like what he's all about. But it takes Alfred. I didn't like that. I feel like Alfred should always be there to offer different types of wisdom of hope, like being there for Bruce but always offering the different perspective, like it doesn't have to be this way. And then the ending, epic, epic ending. It's like iconic. It has stood with me my entire life since I saw it in 2008. But the more I think about the choice, and again, I rewatched the trilogy, so seeing its context within The Dark Knight Rises, Batman doing that, Batman wanting Gotham to believe in a lie, that just does not seem like something Batman would do. That would insinuate that he doesn't believe Gotham can change. But then we see there's like a happy ending at the end of The Dark Knight Rises in a way. Gotham prevails and all this. When everyone learns the truth about what Gordon and Batman did, they look weak, frankly. And I just don't like that. I just don't like that that choice was made. It's not exactly taking the burden. It's not something necessary that needed to happen for the greater good. Like, this was a man who, yes, was in a way a victim of Joker, but he is a villain now. He is killing people. Batman would have held him accountable. It just sounds ridiculous that he lets Gotham believe in the lie that he was a good man. Oh, and by the way, The Dark Knight Rises is certainly the worst Nolan film. Just saying. Now, something I need to acknowledge, something I haven't acknowledged, and at this point I'm just rambling, so thanks for sticking around if you're still here, is Bruce Wayne. That's a very controversial thing, especially with the Matt Reeves Batman. I don't think either did justice to that persona of Bruce Wayne. I think Bruce Wayne should be a lighthearted playboy billionaire, but I don't think he should be a non-respectable person like he is in the Nolan trilogy. This is like Christopher Nolan's way of bringing him into realism. Like, he would have to be a stark contrast, polar opposite, so that no one could suspect. But I feel like the amount that he took his character, I don't love it. And I will say, I wouldn't have made my Bruce, if I was doing a Batman film, I wouldn't have made Bruce an emo grunge type of guy. But I will say, I don't mind it. It's an interesting take, and it makes sense in the context of this film. And it's much more interesting than Bruce being perfect, I feel. Like, if you look at the Bruce and Batman in The Batman Begins when he returns to Gotham, he's like perfect. He's got everything figured out. There's no flaws in him, and he's so slick. And I just, like, that's the thing. That's the type of realism that I do pay attention to, where I'm like, shouldn't he be learning? Shouldn't he still be struggling with the demons and all that? And that's why I love what Matt Reeves does, because to me, Batman should be a tortured soul. Batman has incredible darkness within him. It's more than just my parents died. When you look at the Nolan trilogy, he's a brooding, stoic, dark knight, but he is not really someone who seems tortured, really, someone who has demons within himself. And I don't feel like Nolan really explores that whatsoever. I just love the arc that Matt Reeves takes Batman on, and I know it's going to continue if we get that trilogy. Because where Batman starts, Batman is consumed by his pain. He's selfish and he's young. And I like the fact that he's a little distant with Alfred. This recent time I rewatched it, it was much more clear to me that you can tell that Bruce keeps Alfred at a distance. And the only reason why Alfred gets mixed up in solving the riddles and all that is because he puts himself there. He reaches out, he wants to be closer to Bruce, but Bruce never asks for help. And I do find that interesting because in every single Batman iteration we've seen, obviously they're homies, and Batman's always asking Alfred to do something, do some research on this, or call Gordon, get Gordon on the line, like that sort of thing. Throughout this film, you see Bruce cultivate deeper relationships. You see him get closer with Gordon. With Alfred, obviously, they have a heartfelt moment towards the end. And then obviously the romance he starts with Selena Kyle. That love affair that I'm sure will continue for many films again, if the trilogy happens. Also, the Battle Royale thing. Like, she reaches out to him, and I don't think that's just for nothing, That's starting an arc, that's planting a seed. She reaches out to him saying that she wants to work with him so that he may help more in the city. And we get established how the Wayne Estate orphanage is abandoned. So I could see that being a payoff in the next film. Bruce will become more social, and he will work to help the city, to help the orphans, not just as Batman, but also as Bruce, really try to do right by his family and by his parents' legacy. In a way, maybe like reinvent the perspective of the Waynes because of what the Riddler exposed, of course. Thanks for sticking around. If you stuck around with all this rambling, as you could see, I love Batman, and I had a lot to say. If you've seen I think I talked about it three times already, in my Batman review when I saw it in Dolby, in my Nolan video, and probably in my I don't know. I know I've talked about it many times, but this has been an idea that's been on my mind for almost a year now. Just to really take the time to put these two films against each other. And why do I love the Batman? I hadn't seen the Nolan trilogy in a long time, so does it hold up? If I felt like it didn't in my mind, in my memory, I felt like it didn't hold up. But I still love the Joker. Like, you guys have no idea how much I love Heath Ledger's The Joker. I was concerned, was it all nostalgia, Like, is The Dark Knight not that good? Does it not hold up? And if you care, just to know my full thoughts of the trilogy, I think the ranking is Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. And I think objectively as a film, The Dark Knight is like a perfect 10 out of 10 film. But as a Batman film, for me, it's more like a 9 out of 10. If maybe even an 8.5. Batman Begins is like a solid 8. And Rises like a 6. I think the Rise scene in The Dark Knight Rises is freaking epic. I think there's some good stuff in there. I was surprised that I do actually like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. I definitely prefer Zoe Kravitz though. But, there's some good stuff in there. But I don't like most of that film, to be honest. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts, of course. And thanks for watching.